Alright, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Age of the Primes Aerialbot Air Raid. This is the last of the Wave 1 figures that I got, and yeah, honestly, he's a little bit disappointing. I'm not, like, overly loving these Aerialbots so far. They feel kind of samey to Combiner Wars and without, like, significant improvement, and this guy actually I think is maybe even a bit of a downstep. He's a fine enough figure. He's just got like a couple things about him that I'm just like not overly fond of. Really, honestly, just that I don't love. Like his jet mode, if you just had these off there, that would have been perfect and streamlined and would have looked great. But as is, he's got these huge panels underneath, which isn't as ridiculous when you have the landing gear up. But when you fold that down, it's just sort of like, woof. That's definitely a bit of undercarriage there. And I feel like this guy is so simple that they didn't really need to design it that way. Like, I don't know. I definitely feel like they could have done a bit more to compress that, but because like his arms are just kind of hanging out to the side. I mean, it's a typical air raid problem, right? Of having like since his robot mode is like mostly red and white and his jet mode is mostly black. He always does end up being just kind of like a folded up dude as undercarriage, and like I get it. Maybe it's just the Aerialbot's designs that I have a problem with, but still, yeah, I don't know. I'm not overly fond of this guy. He's fine enough, but I was expecting to like him more than Slingshot, and I do think that I like Slingshot a bit better. But yeah, if you look at him from the top, he's definitely got a nice looking jet mode. Now they did opt to go for the more show accurate like single stripe on here rather than like the toy accurate red and yellow stripe, which personally I think makes him look a little bit more boring. But I get that they're going for show accuracy here. But other than this, like it's a fine jet mode. Like I can deal with the arms hanging out underneath. That's like no, huge thing. But again, I don't know. I'm just not finding myself overly excited about the Aerialbots. I really wish that they decided to deviate from like the, frame design that they did with Menasor, which personally I think worked really, really well for Menasor. But I just think that they should be doing different things with with each of the Scramble City combiners. And I don't know. I think maybe like 4 Voyagers and a leader, or 5 Voyagers, or even 4 Voyagers and like kind of shrunk down commander class for Silverbolt would have been a better way to go for these guys, just to make them a little bit different than the car guys, since they turn into jets. Like you could make them a little bit bigger, and in the cartoon, really all 5 of them were kind of the same height. So yeah, having Silverbolt be taller is like not really necessary. But either way, that's neither here nor there for this video. But in terms of the guy himself, he's okay. He's definitely like an adequate figure. He's just not really blowing me away. Probably my least favorite figure so far of the year, but that doesn't mean he's like bad. He's just kind of unexciting. He does come with a couple of little weapons here, and I do really appreciate that this time around that they are opting for giving them each 2 smaller weapons so that they can just store underneath the wings and not look too sort of like unnatural down there with just like one of them. I appreciate that they're giving each of them 2 weapons so they can actually be, have symmetrical storage there, and that works for me. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. Obviously, jet, car don't scale, but that's old news, but that's what the 2 of them look like together. Here he is with Slingshot, and you can see like just he's a little bit more of a streamlined jet in terms of like, yeah, he's chunky, he's got his bulky bits, but it at least kind of keeps that silhouette of having this sort of like rounded shape along the main body of the jet, whereas him, it's like it does that until right about there. But whatever. And then here he is with Combiner Wars Air Raid, who is probably my favorite of the Aerialbots from that team. And yeah, definitely, from top down, he looks a lot more like the proper jet that he's supposed to be. It's what, an F-22? That's the thing that Starscream and all the Seekers turn into, is also what Air Raid is supposed to be. But yeah, I kind of would have preferred them keep the yellow and red stripes, but I get it. And again, he is mostly just a brick underneath too, but he's not quite as chunky of a silhouette kind of blocking shape down there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know, it just streamlines a little bit more, and they even did a bit more to hide his arms, just in terms of like having his shoulders kind of like slope into the rest of it, whereas him, he's like they just folded away his hands and pegged them onto the side and called it a day. But whatever. But yeah, to get onto transformation, we can just leave the weapons there. That's where they can store in robot mode. You can fold up the landing gear, which is just going to be his chest plate there. Take these sections, fold them down, and then you kind of flip out the foot here, just like that. Then we want to take these back fins, which are actually packed separately. They just peg into place there, but they can pretty much stay there once you actually plug it in. But rotate them around just like this. Rotate these tail fins up. Take this entire back section, unfold it, and then it will double hinge down. Again, very similar to how everything worked for Combiner Wars. They just had separate pieces for the feet rather than, them just being molded in place so you could have ankle tilts and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's pretty similar. Then you can just unpeg the legs there. We want to take the backpack here. Now, it hinges in a couple places, which I'm guessing is more so for combined mode. The legs you'll just have compressed up like this for combined mode, I imagine. But you kind of take this section and double hinge it like that. And then I think I'm not going to show off the whole thing here because we'll get into that when we eventually do Silverbolt. But since he's going to be like a chunk on the leg, I think what you're supposed to do, because you don't use this hinge otherwise, is double hinge the nose cone down like this, which then gives you the clearance to fold the head down like this, which is not where it sits in vehicle mode. And then the wings will just tab in like that. So I think with the legs compressed, that's how it's going to be for combined mode, which again, I don't know. He just kind of looks like a chunk of stuff that's going to be on the back of Superion's leg, but we'll see how well that's handled when the Commander class figure comes out. But for now, to actually transform into robot mode, we're going to leave this nose cone up. I mean, you could compress it down like that, and you could actually fold in the wings too to tab into place. But to be more accurate to Air Raid's, kind of like backpack design, I like to keep the nose cone up and the wings kind of tilted out to the side, which I think is what you're supposed to do because that's what it looks like on the box art. But and then we can just rotate his head around, untab the arms from the side of the body there, and then rotate the hands out. And there we have Air Raid in his robot mode. And yeah, he does make for a good looking robot. And it's not too terrible to compress this down if you wanted a more like compressed backpack. It definitely does stick out a bit more, but that still looks fine. But personally, I choose to just have it stick straight up like that. But yeah, obviously we can have him hold his guns here, and they look fine in his arms. I find that it's weird because they sort of feel like they're like the sort of slot pegs that would kind of like rotate into the long side of the hexagon there. Like they want to naturally sit like that, but the pegs on the guns actually are circular, so I'm not entirely sure why that is. It just might be slightly longer than it is wide, which is why it wants to do that. But so it's not the most stable storage in the world since it wants to do that a lot of the time, but it's fine. But yeah, he looks good holding his guns here. Again, they're nothing crazy. They're just like simple little weapons there, and I don't mind that. And they store well enough on the wings there. But yeah, in terms of articulation, head is on a ball joint, which can rotate around, kind of look up and down. You can look up a little bit more just because of that transformation panel, but it does kind of sink into the body. Shoulders are on swivels here, which can rotate around like that and hinge out to the side. Bicep swivel, a little over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. Nothing at the wrists other than just like bending in for transformation. It's got a waist cut, universal joints of the hips, which can go forward and back and out to the side. Thigh swivel, 90 degrees of bend at the knee. The feet, they can tilt forward like that. They can't really tilt back at all, but they do also have side-to-side ankle tilts. So definitely a huge improvement over the Combiner Wars version in terms of his foot articulation. But yeah, basic, well done articulation. Nothing too crazy there. Like no crazy joints, but also everything is adequate. All the joints also feel fairly tight too, which is nice. Again, nothing too exciting. He's just like kind of a nice basic robot with a jet on his back, which is kind of what the Aerialbot's designs have always been. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe. Just so you can see, pretty much an average modern deluxe there. Here he is with Slingshot, who, I think that maybe his robot mode is a bit more successful in Slingshot insofar that like his shoulders work properly and he doesn't have like the huge humongo feet. But overall, I just think I'm enjoying Slingshot a little bit better as a figure. And even him, I'm not like overly thrilled about. He's just like, he's fine. But again, I think that's probably going to be my feeling going forward with a lot of the new Aerialbot figures. I mean, maybe Silverbolt will be something different because he's like, commander class and he does the whole thing with like the extra like jet bit that turns into the Combiner stuff. I don't know. That's going to be like definitely a new experience from Combiner Wars Silverbolt, whereas these guys, I don't know. They share a lot of similarities with the Combiner Wars versions, and I definitely feel like the team has evolved enough to like do something a little bit different. Again, maybe that would have been doing these guys' voyages rather than Deluxes, but that. But either way, that's what the two of them look like together. And here he is with Combiner Wars Air Raid, who again was like definitely a very novel figure for the time, and he doesn't have any like huge improvements over him aside from like having ankles and having definitely more of like a proper F-22 look in his jet mode. But then again, he also has that undercarriage in his jet mode that this guy doesn't have. So I don't know. They're both fun figures. This guy definitely feels a little bit more solid, but like you'd think that like part of the whole thing with like them changing up the combiner style so these guys don't have to accommodate like the big combiner ports should mean that they have a little bit more, I don't know, oomph to their design that like allows them to hide things away a little bit better, but not really. I mean, they're very similar figures, and I find myself being a little bit disappointed with him. Again, he's not a bad figure. I don't want to be harping on him too much. He's just kind of unexciting and a little bit uninspired in my opinion, but we're bound to get figures like that every once in a while. It's okay. But yeah, without further ado, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday and Thursday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Age of the Primes Aerialbot Air Raid.